There's something special about the Mafia series. Not in the loud, showy kind of way that most open world games try to be, but in a slower, more deliberate way. Like a game that knows exactly what it wants to be and doesn't care if it doesn't line up with what you were expecting. I remember playing Mafia Definitive Edition for the first time about 3 years ago, and it completely took me by surprise. I went in thinking I was getting some kind of old GTA clone, but what I got instead was a tightly focused, story-driven experience, something closer to Uncharted than San Andreas. And that's the thing about Mafia as a series. It looks open, but it plays linearly. Big cities, traffic systems, pedestrians, police, it all gives the impression of a sandbox. But really, these games are more about telling a story than letting you write your own. In most cases, a world this detailed but this empty might be a problem. There aren't side quests on every corner, there's not a checklist of activities to distract you, but somehow that emptiness works, because the point of this open world isn't to entertain you or keep you busy for every single second that you play. It's to immerse you. Take the opening of Mafia II for example. After a brief stint overseas, you return home to a snow-covered New York, or Empire Bay as it's called in this game. You're driving through snow-covered streets as Let It Snow plays on the radio. It's not an action set piece, it's not even really a mission, but it sets the tone perfectly. You feel the cold, you feel the era, the weariness of returning from war, and just like that, you're in it. You are a part of this world. And that's the real star of Mafia 2. See, after Mafia 2, some of the developers went on to found Warhorse Studios, the team behind Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game that's widely praised for how grounded and reactive its world feels. And looking back, you can absolutely see the beginnings of that design philosophy here. It's subtle and, look, it's really rough around the edges, but the reactivity is there. Now, when I say the world is reactive, I don't mean on a massive scale. It's not dynamic like a simulation, it's more embryonic, but the details are there. Details that encourage you to roleplay even if you don't realise you're doing it. For example, the roads are marked with speed limit signs everywhere. You're free to ignore them, and I often did, but if a policeman sees you speeding, they'll come after you. And that simple mechanic completely changed how I drove. I started paying attention to signs, slowing down when I saw a police car, hoping I could decelerate in time just before they spotted me. And of course, I still drove like a lunatic half the time, and sometimes some of the NPCs in your car would comment on it. But even then, I was aware of the world around me. I wasn't just driving through a static city, I was in Empire Bay, and that's where Mafia 2 really shines. What I enjoyed the most about Mafia 2, more than shooting and more than the missions, was just driving and existing in Empire Bay. Taking in the sights while the radio plays licensed songs from the era. And if you're a fan of Fallout's soundtrack, you'll probably feel right at home here. There's this old school charm to the music, and I found myself bopping my head to it constantly. It makes even the most routine drive interesting, because you will be doing a lot of driving from point A to B, and sometimes it'll be filled with chatter between the characters, and there are some great moments, specifically one where you're driving two characters home and they're really drunk and they're singing songs together. And I think at one point and another in our real lives we have been in that situation where you're the sober one and you're trying to get a drunk person home and they're singing and they're stumbling, and they just created the feel so perfectly. Now when it comes to critiquing and reviewing older games, there's really two ways to approach it. You can criticize it for what it doesn't do well anymore, you know, the bad checkpointed, clunky mechanics, awkward controls, and look, Mafia 2 does have a bit of that. It's not super old, it's a PS3 game, so it still feels quite good to play, but it does have some moments that feel dated. And parts of the gameplay just don't hold up by modern standards. But the other way you can do, and I will lean into it in this video, is looking at what the game was doing at the time and whether it achieved what it set out to do. And that's where you can truly appreciate Mafia 2. It's especially weird coming to this after Mafia 1 Definitive Edition, which was a full-blown remake with new visuals and new tech and modernized gameplay and all that crap. But Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, by contrast, is really just a remaster. It's the same game, it runs smooth, it's high resolution, but it looks and still plays like a PS3 game. And that PS3-ness, and yes, that is a word, is one of the reasons why I love Mafia 2 and why I had such a great time playing it. One of the first things that jumped out to me was the destructible environments. In the World War II flashback sequence at the start of the game, I remember I was taking cover and slowly popping out and shooting at the enemies, and some of the concrete pillars would start to break, but they looked really realistic, and honestly, it genuinely blew me away. And that kind of physical feedback and that attention to detail instantly makes the world feel more tangible. Later in one of the early missions, you get your first pistol, and as a little tutorial section, you have to shoot a car. They specifically tell you to shoot the car's wheels, and this was definitely a way to show you the destruction and how interactive everything was. You shoot out the wheel and only that wheel bursts and you can see the car deflate ever so slightly. And I'm not saying that it's revolutionary for 2010 because there were other games that were doing it, but this is definitely a standout thing at Mafia 2. Now back to the PS3-ness of the game. It really is one of them. I said earlier that Mafia 2 knows exactly what it is, and that's what sets it apart. Around 2010, games were starting to get bigger and more bloated. There were more side quests, more open-ended maps, more everything. Whatever they can do, just throw more in it. That's what people want. People want more bang for their buck. But they still hadn't hit the peak of that, which was probably around like 2014 to 2016-ish is when things just started to go crazy. And Mafia 2 just throws all that crap out of the way, and it just sits in a perfect spot. It's focused and it's extremely well paced. Like, you start off in World War II, then you're home and you're easing into street level crime, and then suddenly you're in prison throwing hands in the yard with some Irish guy. And let me just say, as a quick aside, the Irish accents in this game are absolutely terrible. Like, really, really bad. And I was laughing every single time an Irish character was on the screen.
I know you.
You're that fucking guinea who was with Barbara in a jewelry store. I'm in this fucking hellhole because of you.
You got locked up because you're a stupid, crazy fuck.
You know, fellas, my mom was right. There is a God! And he sent you here, you guinea bastard, so that I could pay you back!
But moving on, you get out of prison, then you start to get into more high-level crime, and that was literally within maybe the first half of the game, the first couple of hours, and that's what I love about it. It's not trying to be deep. It doesn't pretend to have super complicated characters or branching moral dilemmas. It's laser focused on delivering a mob movie in a video game form, filled with every trope you'd expect, and it's proud of it. Now here's the thing with that whole statement. I'm not a huge movie guy. I've never really have been. Games and music have always been my medium that I experience art through. I've seen The Sopranos and I've seen The First Godfather, but that's about it. And I'm not weighed down by comparisons to Goodfellas or Casino. So for me, Mafia 2 doesn't feel tired or overdone or even pale in comparison to these absolutely classic movies. It feels fresh and it feels cool, and most importantly, it feels like it's something that was made for me, because I enjoy the mob stories as much as the other person. I did my history project in secondary school on the beginnings of the mob in America, so I've always been very interested in it. But I've always preferred to play my stories than just watch them, and this is exactly what I get. Now, flaws and all, there is a lot to love about Mafia 2, especially in its simplicity, but I think that simplicity might work against the game for some people. Here's the thing, I'm not a massive GTA fan. I like them, I played most of them, but I've never loved them the way so many others do, and a big part of that is the mission structure. The lack of variety and structure of the mission just sort of gets in the way, and then you have to take into account how big and long GTA games are. You know, they're impressive, but it also means that you're going to commit like 30 or more hours to a story that realistically starts to blur together, especially in the early moments. But Mafia 2 gives me exactly what I want. It gives me that GTA-ish experience, but stripped back and really focused. You can beat this game in like 8 to 10 hours, and for me, that's just the perfect sweet spot. Certain games are fantastic in short bursts, but become tedious if they drag on. Give me a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game that takes 50 hours to beat, and I'd probably tap out after 10 or 15. But that loop across 10 hours, like, it's perfection. Same with Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, they're like, what, 10, 12 hours max? But then you get something like Final Fantasy 16 that tries to stretch a relatively simple action loop over 30 or 40 hours, and it just becomes exhausting. And I think the same logic applies to GTA, because you drive from A to B, you might tail a car or chase somebody, you might get out and start shooting at people, and you just rinse and repeat. It works, but only for so long. Mafia 2 trims all that fat. You throw punches in prison, you drive across the town to the same diner 10 times, you sneak into a high-rise building to plant explosives in a conference room full of rival bosses. But at the end of the day, the loop is familiar. You have a cutscene, you drive, you shoot, and then you get out. And if this game was any longer, I'd probably be calling it repetitive. I'd say the mission variety just isn't there, but because I beat it in a couple of sittings over a few days, it never became a problem. And the same goes for the combat. You use the same 4 or 5 guns in pretty much every single mission. You take cover, you pop out, you shoot, You move up, you do it again. There's not much evolution or experimentation, but again, because it ends before it wears out its welcome, I never got bored. And really, that's where I keep coming back to with Mafia 2. It knows exactly what it is. It doesn't overextend itself. It doesn't try to be more than it needs to be. The weak points in the limited combat, the mission repetition, and the shallow progression, they don't really matter because the game's tight pacing and focus structure keep them from becoming problems. And more than anything, I just love being in this world. I love the tone, the atmosphere, the era. I get more enjoyment from existing in Empire Bay than I do in most realistic open worlds. Just being there, hearing the music, watching the snowfall, keeping an eye out for speed signs, that's half the fun for me. And if you can buy into the world of a game, then a lot of the problems do actually just melt away. But my favourite moment in the entire game, and the one that really stuck with me, was the time shift. The game starts during World War II and the tone reflects that. Empire Bay is cold, grey, it's covered in snow, everything feels bleak, heavy and worn down, and it worked. It mirrors where Vito is at in his life, and it sets the tone perfectly for the kind of story that Mafia 2 wants to tell. Then you go to prison. Years pass, and when you come out, it's the 1950s, and suddenly everything has changed. The cars are flashier, the people are dressed in bright colours, the music is faster, livelier, it's more upbeat. Even the season has changed. The snow's gone, the sun's out, and Empire Bay feels like it's thriving again. It doesn't feel like a new game, but it does feel like a new chapter, a natural shift in the tone and style that re-establishes the world without ever really needing to point it out. And I love that. I love hearing the new songs on the radio. I love seeing the subtle upgrades in cars and fashion. It's such a smart, understated way to show that time has passed and the world is moving on, and so is Vito. So no, Mafia 2 didn't surprise me the way Mafia 1 Definitive Edition did. I knew what I was getting into. It didn't blow me away or reinvent anything, but I had a great time with it. Mafia 2 was ahead of its time in lots of ways, and looking back on it now, I can clearly see the DNA that would go on to shape Kingdom Come Deliverance and now Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Two of my favourite RPGs ever made. That grounded, immersive world building, it all started in Mafia 1 and 2. And while Mafia 3 still had a brilliant, believable, realistic world, it didn't quite hit for me the same because it leaned into that post-2014 bloat. More systems, more filler, more content in air quotes. And somewhere in all of that, it lost the identity that made Mafia 2 feel so special. So here's hoping Mafia the Old Country remembers what made these games great in the first place. The atmosphere, the pacing, and the place. If it does, I'll be the first to tell you because I do plan on reviewing it. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this style of retrospective review, I have a load on the channel, so please go check them out. I appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe. We have a Discord down below if you want to chat about games, and yeah, see you all in the next video.